I stood at the edge of the bright auditorium stage, the heat of the spotlights drawing sweat under my arms. My heart hammered as I glanced down at my note cards, palms sticky with nerves. The smell of cheap cologne, floor wax, and the promise of celebration mingled in the air. It was graduating day from Escola Estadual Machado de Assis, the gymnasium packed with restless parents and restless friends. I'd won the student speech, nominated by some turn of fate I didn't fully trust. I held the microphone in both hands, knuckles pale, and as we step into this new chapter, I hope we remember to follow the music in our hearts. A burst of laughter shot up from the left aisle. My Uncle Jorge, cheeks already red from morning cachaça, elbowed my mother and shouted, "Music, quem vai pagar o aluguel hein maestro?" The crowd rippled with laughter. I shrank in. My classmates giggled behind their hands. My speech wilted, the principal gestured for me to finish, but my voice thinned. "We must," I stammered, staring hard at the scuffed wooden floor, "follow our dreams." Someone in the crowd hissed, "Vai concerta violão pros turistas, garoto." Sweat ran down my spine. I cut my speech short, letting the principal pry the mic from my hands. Numbly, I stepped aside, staring at my shoes, their soles peeling, laces knotted where I'd mended them. Applause surged, thin and polite, as I fled toward the safety of the curtain shadows. I heard my mother murmur apologies, "Ille acute asim disde pequeno," her voice full of helplessness. I barely remembered the rest. Photos on overexposed film, family members squeezing my shoulders too tight. Relatives pressed gift-wrapped books about math, law, medicine into my hands, fingers brushing aside offer after offer of real advice. At the after-party, I sat cross-legged on the edge of the terrace. Favela lights blinked down the hills below. My cousin Giulia pressed close, her voice sharp and insistent. "You're not going to actually try it, are you?" She'd picked law for herself just like her father. "Luthier, what even is that? Fixing strings for musicians who can't pay. You know nobody in Leblon will trust you with their violins." "I don't want Leblon," I whispered, staring hard at the black water of Guanabara Bay. "I just want to build, I want to work with my hands. I want to make things sing." Julia snorted and left me to the chill rising off the sea. Even my own mother, rinsing dishes that night, tried softly to steer me elsewhere instead. "Your father was practical, we work in offices. We pay bills, these dreams are lovely Philho, but they end. You don't have the hands for it, you're too gentle, your nails are too clean." She coughed, "Find something safe." I just nodded, anger simmering low in my belly, sacred and quiet. The next weeks passed in a haze. My friends left for job interviews or started classes at facultades I couldn't afford. I found small jobs, running errands, carrying boxes, assisting at Mr. Lopes's hardware store while the summer heat pressed the city into a sweaty submission. Each night I retreated to the little shack behind our building, where I'd hoarded scraps of maple and ebony scavenged from trash by the guitar shop in Lapa. I kept old chisels, my grandfather's, oiled and ready, wrapped in rags. I watched YouTube tutorials late at night, pressing my face close to the flickering phone screen, hands imitating movements in the air. I studied instrument forms. The curve of the rib, the arch of the violin's back, the warm belly of a cavaquinho. My fingers grew calloused, nicked by blades, stained with varnish. One night as I sanded down a slab of spruce, making the fine dust swirl silver in the single bare bulb's light, my mother appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. "You smell like chemicals," she said flatly. "People are talking. Are you embarrassed to get a real job, truly?" I snapped, "It is a real job, I'll show you." But she shook her head, lips pressed thin, rumors spread. I was the strange one in our building, the quiet boy with sawdust on his clothes, the one whose parents must have failed somewhere. Kids imitated me, sauntering with imaginary violins on their chins, mocking my careful walk. Girls who once flirted with me at church now turned their heads away, giggling, eyes hard. Even Don Sebastião, the watchmaker next door, joined in when I asked about spare tools one humid morning. "Instruments? You mean toys. Rio doesn't need more broken musicians, Garoto. Make something useful. Fix faucets, build doors." But anger kept me upright. Every sneer, every wagging tongue stoked something ancient in my chest. I carved, sanded, glued. When I finally held my first assembled cello, wobbly, imperfect but mine asterisk, I wept. The varnish shimmered in my lamplight, the low strings vibrated against my hand, the resonance alive despite my errors. I sent out tentative messages, photos posted to musician forums, new luthier in Rio, student work, humble prices. Nothing, weeks crept by, doors slammed. I risked another try, carrying the cello through crowded streets one sticky afternoon to the edge of Ipanema, where a small orchestra sometimes performed. I approached their conductor, hands trembling, knees weak. I made this. I'm looking for. He barely glanced at me. We use German and Italian instruments, good luck. The walk home felt endless. My life scaled down to tiny rituals, waking, helping my mother, sneaking hours in the shed, returning to small, grinding jobs. Friends drifted off into new lives. The world kept reminding me that luthiery was a foreign thing here, a dream that didn't belong to our neighborhoods. Sometimes, as dusk fell, despair threatened to overrun my resolve. Sometimes I wanted to smash the wood scraps to splinters, burn my grandfather's tools, and bury it all. But something, anger, pride, hope, refused. Nearly a year into my silent apprenticeship, my luck changed. Marcos, a samba musician 2 streets over, appeared at my door holding a battered cavaquinho in both hands. "People say you fix instruments," he muttered, voice rough with skepticism. I took the little instrument, turning it over in my hands. Soundboard cracked, tuning pegs loose, the bridge patched too many times to count. "Give me 1 week," I said, forcing confidence into every word. He nodded, eyes flinty. "If it's no good, I'll tell everyone." Those days stretched into something holy. I worked with utter focus, sleep barely touching my eyes. I scavenged better wood, mended the split seams with the patience of a monk. When I handed the instrument back, his fingers strummed a chord and his head snapped up, eyebrows lifting in surprise. "It sings again." The next week, a friend of Marco's appeared with a broken guitar, then a visiting cellist needed a bridge. Slowly, word crept through the alleys. The strange boy with the useless hands could coax music from dead things, but still no one in my family trusted it. My uncle laughed, "Still a hobby." My mother eyed every stray banknote clutching her purse. 4 years passed, my skills sharpened. I built 2 more cellos, 4 guitars, a viola. I submitted my best violin to a youth orchestra contest on a lark, and to my shock, won mention in a trade magazine in Sao Paulo. A foreign visitor, Maestro Kirchner, bought a viola from me during Carnival and returned the next year for a second. The first honest money I earned, I hid in an envelope deep in my mattress, savoring the feel of it, money shaped by music, not shame. I grew into my own rhythms, the nerves faded, I barely noticed the sneers anymore, but I still avoided family gatherings. I still felt the rage kindled by each memory of that graduation night, the echo of laughter, the casual cruelty of people calling me unserious. Everything changed with one phone call. I was sanding an old mandolin, the radio low, rain drumming on the shed's tin roof. The phone buzzed. My heart stuttered when I saw the number. Orquestra Sinfônica Brasileira. I picked up expecting a wrong number, palms already sweating. A woman's voice. "Are you Rodrigo Alves, the luthier in Mare?" "Yes," I managed. "We need urgent repair on Maestro Pertura's violin." "Tomorrow morning, can you come?" My mouth went dry. "Yes," I said again. The car they sent the next day was spotless. It whisked me across the city, past favelas and high rises and brilliant sun. I spent 4 hours in the theater's backstage, hands steady in a way I'd never known before. The maestro met my eyes, inspected my work, and nodded once. "You have a gift," he murmured. From that moment, the world cracked open. Calls, commissions, even an invitation to Vienna for a luthier's workshop the next year, all came in a breathless rush. For the first time, I had enough money to move my mother to a better apartment, to teach weekend classes for children who wanted to craft beauty with their hands. But it was that same year at Christmas when the world spun back full circle. The family insisted on a huge dinner, raised glasses, roasted pork shimmering with pineapple, cousins arguing politics. I sat in the corner, answering the occasional question. I noticed the tension in my mother's hands as relatives pressed her about my latest job search. My uncle Jorge started in. "Still building toys, Rodrigo. Maybe one day a real job will cause." Heat rose in my chest. I pushed my chair back, scraping the tile. "Come with me," I said, voice quieter than the anger coiled tight inside. They followed out of boredom, curiosity, even contempt. Downstairs, I unlocked the trunk of my battered Fiat and lifted out a violin case, polished and perfect. "I want you all to see something." My uncle laughed. "Going to play us a song, maestro?" I ignored him, unsnapping the latches and tilting the case open. The violin nestled on dark velvet, the varnish catching the hallway's fluorescent light, gleaming gold red and alive. I gestured to Mariano, my cousin who'd played in school. "Try it." He tucked it under his chin, drew the bow, and the sound cut through the air, rich and singing, warm as bread from the oven. The music silenced everyone. After the last note, Mariano just stared at the instrument, shaking his head. This sounds like Vienna. It's expensive. Maestro's violin was worse. I met my uncle's gaze. This instrument was played by Maestro Pericera at the Municipal Theatre. I built it. It's worth more than your car. Shock rippled around the group. Silence thickened. My mother's eyes filled with tears. I laid the instrument gently back in its case. That's what you all used to call a toy. For once, nobody snickered. My anger receded, slow as the tide. It left a calm behind, a kind of serenity I'd never felt. I didn't need their approval anymore, but the humiliation of my youth felt answered, finally, by the truth ringing in the air. They'd heard me, not just the music but the asterisk work. The next months passed in a gentler rhythm. My family eyed me with careful respect, some asked awkward questions. I watched my little cousin, Sophia, sneak into my workroom with sketches of her own, a guitar, clumsy but eager. I guided her fingers around the fretboard, showing her the silent language of wood. One afternoon, as the golden haze of late summer flooded the open window, my mother sat with me in the workroom. She watched silence stretch between us, hands folded, eyes soft. I was wrong, she said finally. Your father would have been proud. I nodded, throat tight. Outside, Rio was loud and bright, car horns, samba, laughter, but I worked as always, mending things until they were whole again. People still talked, still joked, but when I passed them, they nodded first. Sometimes I remembered the boy on the graduation stage, voice frail, shoulders hunched by laughter. That shame still flickered, but now it thrummed like a low note, steady, necessary, the root of all songs. I built new instruments and sent them into the world, humming as I worked, my hands sure. My anger didn't rule me anymore, but it had given me music.